I just love the intro every time I see it. That little guy down in the corner dancing. You folks don't get to see it while he's down there doing it. But welcome Thursday Night Live to all our profiteers out there. Soaring Prophets with your boys. I'm Patrick. That little dancing bear down there in the corner is James. And we have a very special guest today, Dana, from Going Commando with Angela and Dana. Very cool podcast that I've had an opportunity to take a look at here. Very cool young lady as well. You know, she was great with us getting started here. We had a few little technical hiccups on our end. James was doing like living a life or something today, and we kind of came in a little last minute. But Dana, so you decided that you wanted to get into the podcasting space, content creation. It is not Ed Sheeran directly over her shoulder. We've already went over this before in the green room. But how do you guys get into it with your partner Angela? And do you have pants on now? Like, what's going on with this Going Commando stuff? How does that work?
Well, whether or not I'm wearing pants, that's what keeps the mystery alive. So I'm just going to leave that in your hands. But as far as Going Commando with Angela and Dana, I mean, we've just got a lot to say. And we think we're funny, and we have awesome chemistry, and we just get out there every week. And really, the message is, just be who you are. It's all about authenticity. It's about embracing your greatness and bringing it to the world. And we're doing our best to do that. And we're hoping that, we encourage others to do the same. Just be who you are.
Right. So Dana, you start down this path. You are, you've got the art behind you. You start into this space, but it's kind of one fraught with problems, right? We had our technical issues, our little glitches here before. Why podcasting? Why was that like a really interesting, cool fit for the two of you? Obviously, you guys have great personalities. We can see that beaming through the screen here now. But why podcasting? Why not doing something different? Why did we dive into this space in particular?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
That's what we do.
It just seemed like
they're going to get harder.
That's what you do. I'm telling you. That's why I waited online to get here to speak to you guys.
The questions get deeper and harder. I'm just saying.
So why do we do podcasting? Truth is, when I was back in college, like I would hear myself say a lot, I want to be a talk show host. Like, you guys are younger than me, but I don't know if you remember, like when Rosie O'Donnell was huge in the 90s.
I vaguely remember watching repeats of her, I think.
Okay, those are babies. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to be a talk show host. I always knew I had a lot to say. I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live for a while, and I wound up going into education, where life takes you. So when Angela and I reconnected, we were in college together. And when we reconnected a few years ago, we started creating businesses together, just having different pivots and, creating businesses or a business and watching it evolve. But because our chemistry is so great, because we have a lot to say, because we both create content that is intended to like uplift and inspire, empower people, we're like, why not create a show and just, involve everybody else with our nonsense, I
love that.
I think that's brilliant. It sounds like you and Pat, you and your partner there are similar to Pat and I. We kind of started the same way that, we want to uplift people. We want to have those deep conversations, but we also want to unveil the stories of champions and talk to those people that are out there trying to change the world, much like you do with your show, because you're always sending a positive message. And I love that. But how did you guys start? Where was the beginning of your podcast? So for Pat and I, we started off as just sound. We just talked into a mic. That our first podcast, I threw down a phone and said, "Hey, you're doing this." And he's like, "I'm not doing anything to do with this podcast stuff. I am too busy." I'm like, "Just do this." And so then we did I don't know, we talked for an hour over this phone, and I put it out, and he's like, "Well, maybe." And then I got him on a show, and then it was just him talking and I talking heads. And then we evolved into what we got today. So I'm going to imagine you guys started somewhere. And how did you evolve?
Well, firstly, I laugh when you say that he was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And then next thing you know, here you are, right?
Yeah.
The same thing happened with me and Angela as far as creating the business. So, again, we're going back a few years. She had this idea to create this online platform, this like virtual university. And I was like, listen, I'll be your consigliere. I'll be in the background. I even invested shit ton, but I'm going to say it, of money so she could do this. And I'm like, I don't want any part of it. Just do your thing, and I'm here to support you. Next thing I know, she's smoking a cigarette. We're in bed. I don't know how I got there, and she and I are partners. So that happened. So then as it evolved, we with this virtual platform, we had what we called You Instructors. And just like you wanting to tell stories of champions, we wanted to tell stories of people who stepped into their greatness, right? Who've overcome the obstacles, the phoenix rising from the ashes, the whole nine. And we decided to do a little show, and we were calling it Cuddle Talk. And the reason we called it Cuddle Talk, I'm embarrassed to say it out loud, but the reason
I think you picked the wrong name, Pat. I think Cuddle Talk would be our
cuddle. Well, it was a joke with me and my husband, because I'd always be like, we cuddle. So we decided to call it Cuddle Talk because we wanted people to step away from their computers, away from their desks. And the people that we interviewed, our You Instructors, we wanted to be on a futon, on a couch, dressed in your pajamas, hanging out, totally chill. And that was like the premise, to just chill out, be cozy, and cuddle, and we would do these interviews. What happened was, very early on, like if we would have a couple of guests and then we would be like, hey, listen, we don't have a guest. Let's just do this. Let's just go commando, right? Let's just drop a layer and just be the two of us. And what we realized was the magic was with the two of us. So we dropped Cuddle Talk very early on. The first season, we dropped it. It turned into Going Commando. And then it turned into us having guests just every so often, like when, when the spirit moved us. And now we're kind of moving away from guests a little bit. We had a little thing last week. We made a decision that at least this season, we're going to step away from guests a little bit. I don't want to get into the details, but it was a thing. And so that's what we're doing. So that's how Commando was born, stripping off that last layer and bringing it to the audience.
I love that.
Yeah, you know what? I hate when mom and dad fight, and Pat and I fight once in a while, so I get it. You can't always be in the same direction, and having guests is not easy. Like I have to, I'm searching the internet. Now it's interesting. It's fun because I have great people like you sending me email going, hey, can I be on the show? I'm like, absolutely, you're amazing. I love what you do. I watch your show. Of course you can be on our show. And so it's become a lot easier for me because there's these great people that are reaching out to us because we have a little bit of notoriety. But in the beginning, oh my God, it's like, first of all, I got to explain who I am. I got to explain what we do. I got to send you some videos. And then I have to have that negotiation with people to get them on the show. And then we get them into our green room and they're like, you know what? I don't do good with, I thought this was a sound. I don't do good with video. And so then we have to work them through that kind of like a counseling session.
Wow.
And then we get them on the screen and, Pat and I are just good at loosening people up, much like you. We have the gift of the gab and we really enjoy what we do. So we kind of transfer that to them.
It's true, James, because we were talking before we started here that, this is old hat for you. Like you jumped in the tech side of it, even though we had our problems. You're like, yeah, no, I get it. Everything's fine. We're good. But where other people that are not in this space, that would freak them out. They would be very overly concerned into, oh my gosh, am I doing something? And then the interview suffers, right? We collect play. We're like, we're ready to go. And you're like, da 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 da.
I may or may not be wearing
pants.
Hello,
my baby.
Exactly, right? But no, there's a personality that goes along with that. And I can tell you, we've had some interviews that we have not shown because people come in and they so I 100% get where that can be super tricky. But that's one of the things that we've really enjoyed doing for us is growing that dynamic with really cool interviews. But it is hard. And it's something that, we're pivoting now into doing these live form interviews on location with different organizations. We just did this with Healthcare Amplified when we were down in Orlando. We've again stepped into that format a little bit for ourselves and finding that niche in this space is so huge, right? There's guys on YouTube that are making, there's one guy that I keep getting these live links to. I don't know how I've stumbled across him, but he opens up coins.
Could you imagine?
You send him money, like you'll send him unopened coins, and he's made $68,000 opening these coins and looking for rare coins. And it's live. He does it for like 6 hours a day. And there's no algorithm that I can figure out as to how that man has anyone watching him. I got nothing. But it's those unique spaces. I keep showing people my feet, but no one's subscribed.
Nobody.
And oh my God, they go running for the hills. Right.
And we told them about our OnlyFans, but no one even has checked out our OnlyFans. I don't understand. Yeah. We can only do so much. But yeah, no, there's so many niches out there that are doing well. A lot of it is that shock stuff that I hate. Like I really just like, I don't want to shock people. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. I don't want to pretend to give a homeless guy a sandwich. Like, I don't want to do that gaggy stuff. I want to uplift the world and be a better person and leave something to the world. I don't want to take away from it. And that's that kind of niche that a lot of people are in. So you're leaning away from that. What are you going to lean into? What's your plan?
Game show.
Well, I do want to comment on what you said about these niches, these shock value things. And I've said to my husband and to Angela more than once, these goddamn people are farting in a cup and they're going viral. And we're putting our, let's fart in a cup. Like I watched bullshit my kids watch, and they're like, they have like dolls and people play with dolls and they have millions of views. I can't even fathom it. But here's what I'm thinking, guys. And I really truly believe this. The world, as we know, if you look around, is basically crashing and burning around us. But a lot of people will look at that as a bad thing. I'm pretty sure you guys probably share a similar opinion. I think it's amazing because all of the systems have to be razed to the ground in order for something new to be built. And we are in that space. And people like us, people like you guys, people like me and Angela, people like Mark Reed, we are all doing something very similar. We put our own stink on it, but we're all doing something very similar. And we're staying true to our authenticity. We're staying true to our integrity. We're bringing to the world what the world needs. But the world right now is like children. They don't even know they need it. But at some point, they're going to be out of their tantrum. They're going to look up and go, there you are. And we are going to have honed our craft in a way that they're going to be like, they won't be able to take it. They're going to desire what we have to offer. So I'm not going to resort to farting in a cup, and I'm not going to resort to all that SEO bullshit. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Angela and I, we have a freaking party every week. We create the reels. We have a good time. And when it expands, it will expand. And we will all be partying together.
I agree.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. Like that. So I do a lot of work with people trying to help them overcome things. And that's part of Soaring Prophets. Part of it is talking to these companies where they went through hell. They were on their knees. They had no path forward. They were in darkness and they had to overcome it. And because they overcome, I'm a firm believer that we have to walk through darkness so we can see the light better, so we can appreciate it, so we can grow stronger, so that we can learn. Like, we go through darkness so we can learn the skills we need to embrace the light and be better for it. And you're right. I've been saying over and over again that the world right now is so divided. It's so separated. Everyone is so angry with each other. We can't have a conversation without people calling people names. Like, it drives me crazy that we can't have a conversation, that deep conversation, whether it's about transgenderism, whether it's about politics. The fact that you can't be a conservative or a liberal without being yelled at and called a name, that's unfathomable to me.
Well,
you can't be part of religion without being called a name. And you can't discuss it, because if you discuss it and you have an opinion that isn't the mainstream media, it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's the popular in the world opinion. It's the popular in the mainstream media opinion, which is vastly different, and people don't get that. You get attacked, and it's hard to deal with. And I agree with you. I think right now we are going through a period of a swing. And right now, people are going to get tired of being in the sewer, of watching the fart cut videos, about watching the people playing with dolls for some reason, the people like, going up and slapping someone, or going into a mall and like saying rude things to people just to get a shot. That stuff is going to go to the wayside because people need to be uplifted, and they're going to search for us for that uplifting, those uplifting messages. Going back,
100%.
Can you think of some of the interviews you've done? What would be the one that you're like, it blew me away? Not only did it blow me away, it told me that this is the space I'm supposed to be in.
Interviews that I've done with another, or like that where I've been interviewed,
Either.
or that I've done interviews?
Any that made this is the space I should be in. This is what I should be doing, and the positivity I'm bringing into the world is the right thing.
Well, a couple years ago, what are we in 2024? In the spring of 2021, I wrote. Actually, in the winter of 2021, I wrote a children's book. But in the spring and summer of 2021, I wrote 2 books back to back, both about empowerment. One is called 10 Recommendments for Personal Empowerment, and the follow-up is Beyond the 10, Decoding the Woo-Woo. After I wrote those books, in the fall now of 2021, I started doing, and going into 2022, I did podcast after podcast. I went on like Podmatch and just wanted to promote these books and just talk to anybody that would listen. I probably did a solid 30 podcasts. And with each one, I realized, and again, similar types of podcasts, all about, again, self-help and some spirituality stuff and empowerment. But every time I talk to people, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much positive, inspiring stuff to talk about. I just want people who are like-minded to talk about it with. And everyone I talked to, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And around that time is when Angela and we started, like, again, the Cuddle Talk, which morphed into the Commando. But that first Commando that Angela and I did together, where we were like, oh, we don't have a guest, let's just do it. That's when I knew. That's when I was like, we film every Monday morning, right. And every Sunday, I'm like, oh my God, So when you feel that way about anything, you should be doing more of that. So, and I do want to comment based on what you were saying about how you go on location and you interview people. In mine and Angela's conversation about what we should do about guests and take a break, we agreed on that. We're like, we want to do more of that. A couple weeks ago, I did an art exhibition at this wine bistro that I have all my artwork in. And she flew down. She's in New York. I'm in Florida. And she flew down and we recorded a Commando from there. And we talked about the food and we talked about the place and we talked about my art. And we were like, this is what we want to do. And I'm probably going to meet her in Philly in September to see Pearl Jam. We're like, we're going to record from Philly. So like, that's what we want to do. We want to travel the world. We want to meet cool people go to places with intention and do Commando from there. So there'll be guests involved, but it'll be a different feel, as I'm sure you guys are feeling with what you're doing.
Well,
when we went to Healthcare Amplified, it was amazing. We were walking around just meeting people, and we ended up like bumping into some incredible people and made some great interviews because of it, and probably would never have met them otherwise. And we've made some great connections from it. Pat, you were going to say something. I'm sorry I interrupted you, bud.
Well, no, and it goes to kind of what you were saying there, is that the dynamics are very different when you put a camera in somebody's face and you're talking at an event, that there's like a like-mindedness that comes along with that, as opposed to being like, here's the Zoom. Unfortunately, you get in a lot of interviews, obviously not yourself, you're a pro at this, but some people just read the script, right? They're like, brand, this is what I'm supposed to say, this is what somebody has told me what marketing is, and I'm just going to keep saying the script over and over and over and over again. So if you're trying to do, a 45-minute show and you're like, stop with the script, we're not doing the script, jump on this, lady. Come on, let's go. But when you're in person, there's a little bit more animated. There's something more about it that you can dive into, and you can pull that out so much more uniquely. And we did the Healthcare Amplified stuff. We've got some really unique stuff coming down the pipe here over the next, few months. The next 6 months, and for those of you profiteers in there, there's going to be a lot of really cool changing stuff that's going on here. Some really cool stuff we're working on, as always. But when you are face-to-face with somebody and you engage them, it is a way different experience. And who doesn't like to travel the world? That sounds like an LKI plan as well.
Right?
Probably a good time to mention, Pat, if they hop on our website, they can subscribe, and then they're going to get some great new newsletters that we're putting out that's going to explain what's coming up and what to look forward in the future, because we do have some great things coming up. So let's go back.
Just sorry, go ahead, pivoting position right now for all of you guys out there. You know what we're doing, that we've got all these projects, and Dana, you can understand this, is when you start making revenue from doing what you're doing, it now becomes more of a business, it becomes more of a profession, and we take it a little bit more serious than where we are. And we've had in the last, we're probably 18 months kind of into podcasting, maybe 19 months. And when you start seeing the checks roll in for the projects that you're doing, it's sort of a nice feeling. And we like to keep doing that. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's not, right?
No,
it's not work when you go and you do these projects. You have a lot of fun, and it's something we enjoyed doing, out of the basement when we first started anyway. So it's a very cool experience that we're getting and privileged to do right now.
Oh, yeah, and then we were getting those DMs from people telling what they're appreciating, asking us questions. So if you're out there and you need to talk to me or you need to talk to Pat, come on, reach out to us. So I want to go back further. So you went to university, you're an artist, you've written some books. How about we talk about those books and how you're motivating people through those books? Let's talk about your first one, which was 10
Recommendments for Personal Empowerment.
Tell us a little bit about that, where it came from, why it came from, what drove you to do it. Like, what in your life led you to a space where you felt that you were able or wanted to empower others?
Oh, well, you were saying that, people have to be in darkness or have experienced darkness, come through the darkness, be able to bring the light, right? I'm paraphrasing, but that's what you were saying. And, I come from a bit of a dumpster fire, we all have our stories. I'm a Gen X kid. It was not always pretty. And I have to give you can I give you just a little bit of my background just to give you a little bit of context?
That's why we're here. We are here. It's the Dana Show, and we want to know your background. And we're also waiting to find out if you have pants. I'm just going to throw that out there. You don't have to tell us right now. But if you keep watching, by the end, we're going to find this out.
Yeah, right. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
So just to give you a little background, I was always creative, but when I went to college, I went to the University of South Florida, I majored in education. So my background is in education, specifically special education, and I was in education for about 25 years in total, rounding out my career as an administrator, director of student development, working with teachers, teaching them how to work with kids with differentiated instruction, working with kids with differentiated instruction, dean of students, handle discipline, that was my thing, but always a creative spirit. So my career was really strong. I had my children a little bit later. I had both my girls just squeaking into 40. I had them at 30, 38, and 39, and then I turned 40. So I had the career, then had the children, then met my husband. Don't judge me. So when all of that happened, my focus on my career started to shift. And because I've always been very achievement-oriented, it was killing me because I was trying to be everything and do everything or whatever. And somewhere around 2014, I get married. 2009, 2011, I have my children. 2014, I get married. 2015, I get diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So I don't know if you're familiar. I was always relatively athletic, but rheumatoid arthritis is like a lupus. It's like a fibromyalgia, kind of shuts your body down. Right. And around that time, I was a little less physical, and I picked up a paintbrush for the first time in January 2015. I was I'm going to do something different. And my husband and I, instead of going to Costco on a Friday night, I'm let's go to one of those painting with a twist classes, where you drink wine with a bunch of women. Yeah, well, he was I'm not doing that. Stupid. He's but what I will do, he goes, I'll take you to the local craft store. I'll buy you anything you want. We'll paint at home. So we go home and we paint. I'm Robbie, I'm going to paint you an elephant. And he was I think you're good. And that day, something woke up in me. So I started teaching in 1994, the 1994-1995 school year. 2015, I picked up a paintbrush. By 2017, I left my six-figure career because I was going to be an artist.
Wow.
And again, there's a lot of yada, yada, yadas in there, but that's what wound up happening. So, started doing art festivals, went on Etsy, did all that stuff. But by 2017, June of 2017, I left my job. By 2019, I took 2 years. We sold our house because we couldn't afford to live the way we were living without my income. Sold our house, moved out into a rural area. I had a Mercedes, had the fancy car. My husband's like, you're going to have to give up the car. Gave him the keys to the car, drove like a paid for crappy car, moved out into the woods. He set me up with like a really cool Mac Daddy, like studio that he like put the air conditioning unit and like the whatever, the whole nine, made it so functional like a she shed. And I painted for 2 years and I did these things and I tried to figure out where I was going. And by 2019, again, yada, 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 don't want to fill too much airspace, but I wound up opening a gallery of my own. But what I didn't realize in that time from 2017 to 2019, when I was trying to figure out how I was going to be successful as an artist, because everybody says starving artist is never going to happen, I wound up on this unintentional spiritual journey. And moved out into, back to nature, doing what I love, releasing the stress, you know what I mean? And, revisiting myself and really becoming introspective. And in doing so, I started meeting really cool, intuitive people. I didn't know what a Reiki healer was. Next thing I know, I'm friends with like 10 of them, psychic mediums, like the whole nine.
They're all in the woodworks.
They're everywhere.
My best friend is a Reiki healer.
Everybody Reiki master. So within those 2 years, I'm painting, I'm trying to figure it out, pursuing being the successful artist. I meet all these cool spiritual people. I'm discovering my own spirituality. And I said to a new friend of mine who happened to be a trans channel, I said, wouldn't it be cool if we gathered all of our people, all of our intuitives, all of our artists, and we opened a space that embraced both, because your intuition grows with your creativity grows with your spirituality, your intuition. So I wind up opening a Ubuntu Fish Gallery in the fall of 2019. Again, many details that I've skimmed over, but open Ubuntu Fish Gallery where we did this. In that space, it was like a playground, a learning environment with all these cool people, again, embracing our creativity, embracing our spirituality. And I started doing intuitive guidance because my background's in education and mentorship and psychology and all these things. And in the spring of 2021, my whole family, we'd go to Disney World, we get COVID. And dropped like dominoes, boom, boom, boom. 4 of us, again, my daughters are teenagers, and the 4 of us, we dropped like flies. And it was the first thing to slow me down for the couple of years that I was motivated to do all these things. I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to do all these things. And it slowed me down. And in that time of stillness, I would have these really profound thoughts about things that I would talk about in my intuitive guidance sessions, things that I experienced when I was facilitating workshops. And I would grab my phone and I would just, jot the ideas in there. And when I started to feel a little bit better, I was like, you know what, let me create like a list. Let me create some sort of outline, because I'll probably teach a workshop at the gallery or something like that. And then I was like, oh my God, there's 10 of them. And then I started, let me write a little blurb about each of them. And then I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm writing a book. And I got COVID and I wrote this book, and it's really like I know I wrote it, whatever, but it's like life changing. Like anybody who's read it and like really utilizes the practices are like, holy shit, this changed my life. So wrote the book. And then right after I have it here because I was just reading an audiobook, but I have Beyond the Tent, my artwork, you see it behind me, Beyond the Tent, Decoding the Woo-Woo, which is 10 Rex is really like how to empower yourself and how to like get out of your own way. And then Decoding the Woo-Woo is like the spiritual journey you find yourself on after you get your head out of your rear end and what that looks like. And then you hear these people in the spiritual community, they're all like with their manifestation and their alignment and all these doo-doo words. And I basically translate it and say, this is what happens. Yeah. This is what happens. You align yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I'm the guy that's sitting there going like, she just said all those words, and all I can picture is a bunch of naked people in the woods in a commune. Yes. I don't know what any of it means.
Yes.
So let's deconstruct this a little bit. So what does that look like? One of our first interviews, Mike, he was actually a Reiki guy. I really found him interesting. So I do have a bit of an understanding of the Reiki aspect. But what was it? How, when you bring all of these like-minded individuals together, what does that look like? You've got a lot of personalities in a room. Yeah. How do you decode the woo-woo?
Yeah. And does it make money? Because normally it does not.
Yes.
Because you got a whole bunch of creative people and you don't have a pat. And that has always been my findings, that I can get together with a bunch of great creative people. We'll do a lot of wonderful things. But if you don't have a Pat, the guy who puts the rubber to the road, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that's a really good question, and it's what I learned. I owned the gallery for 4 years. I opened in September of 2019. I sold it in October, just this last October, 2023, because I'm moving on to doing these other things, and my energy was in too many different places. But you're absolutely right. When people lack balance, and I know I'm not telling you guys something that you don't already know, but when people are either too T-crossing, I-dotting, they live in this box, and you know what that looks like. And when people are too creative and they're out in the ethers, we always say, like, holding a crystal, shitting in a bucket under the moonlight. My husband calls my friends barefoot doo-doo hippies, you know what I mean? But when you have too much of that, you don't get anywhere. All you're doing is talking about, alignment and manifestation. You're getting nowhere. But what I have in my favor, I have a couple things in my favor. One is I'm incredibly balanced.
Barefoot doo-doo hippie.
Yes.
In a bucket.
Give me a second, and I love it.
Oh my God. My husband is a pisser. Yeah. Barefoot doo-doo hippies. But I have the balance. I am very much grounded. And I also am very connected to that spiritual realm. So what I found was, especially in the gallery, a lot of people couldn't keep up. They wanted to just sit on the couch and light their sage. And I'm like, no, man, I'm running a business here. We got work to do. And then Angela comes into the equation. And a few years ago, and when Angela stepped into the equation, she is very T-crossed, very I-dotted, and a little disconnected from the spirituality. But together, because we assist each other. You guys know, very complementary,
Oh, yeah.
So not only am I balanced myself, she and I balance each other. I happen to be married to a freaking saint, even though I want to bury him in the backyard on the daily.
You want to make him a saint.
Right. But he's amazing. He's super balanced, super, again, T-cross, I-dotted, which allows me to be more creative.
Yeah.
So I can be in this world because I'm surrounded with some really, really powerful, Rob and Angela. But I'm like surrounded by some really powerful people, and you can get things done and still have a couple feet in the woo-woo. And I think that's the direction many of us are going in. They're figuring it out.
I think that's so important. So I am in the woo-woo, but not as deep as I'm not in the forest naked. Pooping in a bucket or whatever you said under the moon. I'm not doing that, but I have a creative side that drives me. And because Pat, who he is, much probably like your husband, it sounds like Pat crosses a lot of T's. Yeah. So when I come to him with an exciting idea where I'm like way up here, he's like, yeah, okay, James, that's a great idea. And I'll pitch him 10 ideas.
Or I just don't respond to the email.
He does that too. Absolutely, he does that too. And I'm like, okay, I just move on.
And the 4 a.m. ones are always the best. Because when I wake up at like 8 and I'll be like,
my God,
we're on a journey. I see.
Oh my God, Pat, I got to tell you, you are me in this scenario, and James, you are Angela, because I am early to bed, early to rise. I am in bed 9, 10 o'clock at night, and Angela's usually up, and I always get the 4-page text when I get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I always look at the timestamp, and it's 12 something. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. and the joke is I doodle, she'll say something and I doodle all over it. I'm like, you've got to email it to me. Because if you tell me straight up, oh my God, I have this awesome idea. We're going to go to such and such and we're going to do it. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel you guys.
Yeah. And that's just it. I pitch him the idea and then it grows from there. Sometimes he just pisses all over it and we don't get to do it. But there's other times that, because he has that other side of it, that he envelops it and makes it into a bigger, greater thing. And we get some great opportunities because of it, because we both are we're both personable. We're both out there. We're both we like to be involved in things. But I have that creative side that I want to do some outlandish kind of fun things, maybe do a Spartan race where we're crawling in the mud and running up mountains. And, as you can see, Pat's not doing that with me. I think it would be great content.
The Spartan runs, the one that they're doing, so James, his story, lost a lot of weight, and now he's a marathon runner. I tip my hat, good sir. I was an athlete when it mattered. Now I don't have to do that shit. So
okay, Al Bundy. He played football. He had like 5 touchdowns in one game.
Hey, Al Bundy it up, pal. I got the rings at home to prove it. But
I love it.
When at 50 years old, your thrill of a weekend is to go electrocute yourself by running 5 kilometers, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I did mine. But you, buddy, you shoot your shot, pal. I love you for it. But no, it's that the working together as a team. And it's so funny because James and I, these projects that we're working on now and being asked to join, we bring such a dichotomy of skill sets. And we had this experience today. So I was asked to come in and do this certain position within this organization to help out with. Then I'm like, James he's going to fill this to a T. We bring them both together. And now we've got such an actionable game plan for this. And it's, if you can't do it all yourself, which nobody can, if you can't, you got to surround yourself with really good people. And I've been fortunate, I bust his ass, but James is a fantastic guy, one of my best buddies. And, he's got my truck right now, so I got to be nice to him so he gives it back to me. I'm the buddy with the truck. Hopefully one day I'll get a car.
When did you get a truck? You got a truck? That's pretty cool. Do you know what's funny? Today I picked up a truck. I have a truck in my front yard. It's awesome. If you need to move, Pat, you just give me a call. I'll be happy to use my truck to move you. It's awesome. But you're absolutely right. Like Dana, you mentioned this. You mentioned about surrounding yourself with good people. Yeah. And that was part of my journey. So it's funny. I don't know what happened in 2014, 2015. But a lot of the people we talked to on this show and people that I have talked to, that was their point of impact. So I talk about a point of impact is where you hit your bottom. You feel like, you know what, I don't want to do what I'm doing. You know what, I don't want to touch the bottle anymore. You know what, I don't want to be in the relationship I'm in anymore. That happened in 2014, 2015 for a large group of people in the world. And it's interesting as we're talking to people, but they all pivoted into beautiful, wonderful things. And a main part of that was because they switched the people they surrounded themselves with. Because if you have different people, if you have people who are drinkers around you, you're likely going to drink. If you have people that want to smoke weed and play video games, that's what you're going to do. But if you have people like Pat here who wants to make money, he wants to do a business, he wants to relate with other people, that's what you're going to end up doing. And I love that about what we're doing, because that's a big part of Soaring Prophets. So you wrote a book. Yeah. It's very interesting that you wrote a book. So what I did, we had a kind of a similar journey. So I'm in education. I do behavior. I do autism. Autism is really my bag. I know a lot about it, and I work a lot on extreme behaviors, mostly with children. But I kind of want to pivot out of that too. The space is being handcuffed a little bit. They're giving all the power to the children. Like it's very hard to set limits when you're not allowed to set limits. And you can't give those lessons. You can't give corrective experiences if you can't set limits. And right now, for some reason, it's the wrong thing to do to say no to a child. And that makes no sense to me. Children cannot make their own decisions. They can't. They can make their own decisions with guidance. They can make their own decisions with with choices. But to say that, Billy gets to run around the room until he stops, and I'm going to remove a whole classroom and put them in the library until he calms down, is a ridiculous idea for me. I think it's crazy. Do you mind getting into education?
Oh my God. Can you feel my blood pressure? Can you see my blood pressure rising?
I feel it. Yeah. I kind of want to know your experience, because you're from America, I'm from Canada, and that is very much the experience we're having here.
Yeah, so that what you're describing is pretty much why I wound up leaving education. Yes, fortunately, I saw that I was an artist and I had something to pursue, but I ran out of there on fire. And in 10 Rex, actually, I talk about this because it wasn't pretty. I had this amazing career. I was in this one school. It was actually a private college preparatory school. And I was there for 16 years. So I had this tremendous reputation, but in the time I was there from 2000 to 2007, 2001 to 2017. I've been in education since 1994. So it's all changed. It's amazing how much it's changed from then to now. And so in my job, because part of it was to the dean to discipline students, I was getting cut off at the knees at every turn. I was probably the only classroom teacher, because I did teach a couple classes also, that had any kind of grip on my students, because everybody else, most of them subscribed to that mentality of, we don't want to upset them, or, I call it the puppy syndrome. Like the parents at the park are like, come on, we got to leave. And the kid's like, no. And the mother's like, come on, puppy, I'll give you a juice box. I just want to bang their little heads together.
Yeah.
So I wound up leaving my job kind of disgraced. Like I sabotaged myself in the end. I mouthed off to 2 kids that in private school, parents, their names were on a building, and the head of school came back and pushed back, didn't have my back. I was tired of fighting against the stream or, against the current. And that was the end of 2016. And I went into the summer, the end of 2016. I came in first day of school 2017. I said, you got me for the year. I'm done. Anything you need to know about the position that I essentially developed because I had been there for so long.
Right.
Now is the time to pick my brain, because June 13th, because we get out early here, June 13th, you're never going to hear from me again. Like, don't try calling me on the 14th.
Don't
you're
call
done
me.
here.
Yeah.
And I left. So I'm in total agreement. My mantra was like consistent consequences. You gotta hold these kids accountable. Without accountability, you're raising these entitled adults. And look at the world we live in. The pendulum swung. Aren't you glad you asked? The pendulum swung like in the 70s and 80s, like kids that were growing up, again, Gen Xers. We were abused, we were neglected, we were, raised by wolves. And what happened was we come into adulthood and say, we're going to raise our kids differently. And then we got the puppies. Oh, that's okay, puppy, and don't do this, puppy, and it's all right, and whatever you want, puppy. And now what I'm hoping is the pendulum has swung so fiercely in that direction, it's got to come back. It's got to. Not while I'm in education. I'm out. Like, I don't want to be there to see it, but at some point, it's got to come back.
Yeah, I won't be there either, but I agree with you. The pendulum has to swing back, because right now it's not working. People are going to get hurt, especially when you deal with that hardcore behavior or autism or stuff like that, where if you can't set consistent limits, it gets out of control very quickly. People get bit, people get hit, people get hurt, headbutted. They themselves can run out of the school. It's a dangerous situation. Part of the problem I understand, though, because there was a group of untrained people that were putting their hands on children, and they were doing it out of vengeance, not
anger.
not out of corrective experiences. But that was like 10% of the world. It wasn't the majority. And unfortunately, we tend to react to that kind of shock. And I think that's what's happened. And it's unfortunate. I think a lot of the things that we have stopped doing are wonderful. But this whole idea that we should make all the other children's education affect it because one child has gone off, that's wrong to me. I wouldn't like that for my kids, and I don't want that for other people's kids. It's not fair. And it also teaches the child nothing. It gives you're handing them the keys to the throne, and you're just saying, well, I'll wait till you're done. And, there's no corrective experience. Whereas before, you could set that limit, you could move to a safe space, and you could go, okay, you know what? You don't enjoy what's going on either. Like, you're not enjoying this. How do we make this better? Come on, let's work together so we can make choices in the future. So when you feel this way, because you don't understand how to react to your feeling, because you have no executive function, right?
No.
You need to learn executive function. And that's what we did, is we were able to set limits, stop the behavior, and then teach executive function. You can't teach executive function if they don't see a problem. If they get to bark in the room and yuck it up and everyone laughs and then they come back the next day and there is no consequence.
No consequences.
Where is the time? Where is the time for corrective experiences?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I, do you mind if I share something with you?
Absolutely.
Well, that's why you're here.
That's why I'm here. So I mentioned, and I feel like I feel like I'm sounding like I'm doing these book plugs, but the first book that I told you that started this whole thing, it's called Veda Finds Her Crown, and it's for children. And what it is, it's a little children's story, like the first half of it, and then the second half is a workbook. And the primary purpose is to teach children how to regulate their emotions so they can modify their own behavior. And I've done workshops on this book. I've done it with adults that work with children. And Pat, you're going to love this because, I say woo-woo stuff and you're like, what? But it's based on the chakra system and the development of our children through the resonance of these chakras. So when you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have physiology, acceptance, they're all out of order, but you know what I'm saying, to self-actualization. And the chakra system, the ages of resonance as a child develops, is root, sacral, solar plexus, so on and so forth. So I wrote the book. I did my own illustrations. It's all color coded to help the children understand that safety is red, confidence is yellow, and what it looks like when they're imbalanced. And if we could start teaching children at these developmental stages, whatever the stage is, how to do these things in a fun way, in an interactive way. I happen to use the chakras because, again, I understand the spiritual component. I like the color-coded component, you know what I mean? And to apply it to the children. If we can all think differently and stop teaching them to tests, right, the world will be a better place. I just think that, again, people are resistant. Because people are used to doing things a certain way. They don't know any better. But again, I know I sound like a broken record. People like us, there's a lot more of us coming up and trying to change things up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that our number one cause for youth mental health right now is because of the way we are teaching them. We're teaching them that everybody wins, that you're a superstar, that you can do anything, dream big and you'll reach it. Well, not everyone will reach it. Yep. We don't allow them to fail. We don't even allow them to try to fail because we're standing in front of them going, okay, don't fall. Let me grab you. So that when they get into the real world where there's no one standing in front of them with a chute or anything trying to protect them in their bubble, they have to deal with the fact that their boss is angry with them. They have to deal with the fact that a friend group doesn't want to talk to them because something happened and you have to negotiate back in that. They have no idea how to self-regulate that, and so then that puts them in the position of this idea that they are suffering from extreme anxiety, and the anxiety is caused by the fact that they don't know how to deal with disappointment. And this is a theory, obviously I could be wrong.
No, you're not.
That they don't know how to they don't know they have no conflict resolution because we don't teach it anymore. We don't teach it. We used to teach it on the art. We used to allow things to happen, come up, and then we would assist them to work through it. We don't do that anymore. We don't allow them to fail anymore. Like we don't I don't know a kid who's failed a test now, right? They basically write tests so they'll succeed. Like you said, we teach to the test now. We don't teach that higher level thinking anymore. And I find that very frustrating. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that, like you, I'm an old man. I don't want to fight anymore. Like back when I was 20. I'm not an old man,
but okay.
You're not? Wait.
Well, in this day and age, yeah, call me sir. Whatever.
Oh my God, we have a moment of quiet. I don't know what to do with it. So Ed Sheeran is not over your shoulder. That's what I want to hear. Sorry, Pat. Go ahead, Pat. What were you asking, Pat?
Well, I was saying, I feel bad. You and I are going off about education. I wanted to get, I was like, Pat, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I've got a 14-year-old daughter, and James can kind of attest to it. Is that
She's beautiful.
I've watched her group of girls, like her group of friends, they're built different. Like they went through COVID, were grade 5 going through COVID. Socially, my daughter is advanced. Like my daughter is 5'10". She looks like she's 22 years old. She's 14 years old, right? And can hold a conversation on sort of thing. When you get to her peers, not her friend group, but her peers in the school around her, it's night and day. Like they are socially inept. Mm-hmm. It is a very wild situation to watch. But I've also watched her with her athletics and her group of friends. They have all been told that you got to hustle. There's not a one of them that isn't out there hustling, doing something. My daughter's with me doing, business deals. She's with me when I'm talking with renters and doing applications. She's coming to the bank with me and we're talking, negotiating mortgages. Like she sees this stuff. And it's a peek behind the curtain of what professionalism is going to mean for her someday. I want her to inherit all these properties. I want her to be able to manage this in the next 5 or 10 years so that I can sit on a beach somewhere and drink Mai Tais. Mm-hmm. But that's the issue, is that if you think that you're going to hand your kids to James and they're going to come home and that they're going to be well-rounded humans, you're toast. Like as a parent, if you think that the education system should be responsible for raising your child, you're done before you start it.
Yeah.
And that's where, it's that personal accountability that I think is so huge. And all too often, dad's got darts on Friday night, bowling on Saturday. He's with the boys golfing Sunday morning, and you lose what is real and important in your families. And then we sit back 15 years later and we go, Timmy's an asshole. And it's like, I can't imagine why.
Yeah. I've learned that, people parent from their own dysfunction, and it comes from two different directions. Either you overcompensate for your dysfunction and you swing, like we said, the puppy syndrome in a completely different direction, or you don't learn from it and you're parenting the way that you were parented, like a child of an alcoholic. You have the extreme non-alcoholic and the extreme alcoholic. And what I'm trying to do, again, back to the work that I do, the books that I write and all that stuff, is I'm trying to assist the adults in sort of reversing the damage, teaching them ways to look at themselves and to become better people. And as a result, they become better partners, better teachers, better parents, better friends. And that will trickle down to the children. And then also get the children, because I could work with the children until I'm blue in the face, but like you said, if their parent is an asshole, they go home to the parent. You know that, James. I can work with kids all day long. They go home to their parents.
Absolutely.
So like I said, my focus is teaching people to look at themselves. If your life around you is dysfunctional, it's not your boss, it's not your spouse, it's not your neighbors, it's you. Yeah, and when you figure that out and you work that out, then all of a sudden your boss gets better or disappears. Your spouse gets better or disappears. You know what I mean? And I think that's the push. It's getting people this accountability we all keep bringing up. Look at ourselves. Again, I don't want to get into the whole thing because we've been at this for a while, but like if you look at your development through the chakras and you can see that, 0 to 7, if you had something that made you feel unsafe, you go through your whole life insecure. If you're in the solar plexus years where you feel insecure, lack of confidence, you go through your whole life building on that, and everything around you is a result of that. Get it in those stages, and then again, everything is built on that foundation. Oh, by the way, this season, Going Commando with Angela and Dana, we're talking about the chakra system. We're starting from the rooter to the tutor. We're working our way up, and we're only in episode 2. Watch now.
Well, I think that's a perfect way of segueing on our way out here at the top of the hour. But there's some really interesting works as far as books that you've put together, right?
Yeah.
You've done some great job here with the Phenom. Am I saying that right? Publishing?
Yeah, Phenom Publishing.
So 10 recommendments.
Mm-hmm.
Recommendments. I like that. That's good.
English is hard.
Decoding the woo-woo.
Decoding the woo-woo.
Uniquely You, update number 52. Was there?
That's Angela.
That's Angela's.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, if you check it out, phenom-publishing.com, you can check out all of her works. Dana, how else do people get in touch with you?
Ooh, if you wanted to just find me, to see all the art and everything that I do, you could go to ubuntufishgallery.com. But I highly recommend you get over to YouTube. We're on Spotify and Apple and all that, but you get over to YouTube. You find Going Commando with Angela and Dana. It is truly dinner and a show. The way you two have chemistry, that's what we have. And because we're commando, we hold nothing back. Like I was just looking at a clip the other day. We were like a minute and like 12 seconds in, and we were talking about poop. And I was like, here we go. So yeah, you checking to see?
You got the pants on.
Yeah.
We did promise. We did promise.
Yeah, but Going Commando, and anything else you need to know about us, you start there and follow the trail of breadcrumbs.
I agree. Get on that show, subscribe, like, share.
Thank you.
They're doing some wonderful things, and they're two beautiful people that really have a message and are really fun to listen to. You're going to have a really good time. You're going to laugh along the way and learn a little bit. I'm interested in this chakra. Sorry, I don't have water. I'm interested in the chakra stuff that you're talking about and how to influence it. I just want to touch base on the last thing you said. My personal opinion is if you're 24 and you're out there and you're still blaming your mom and dad for the shittiness of your life, you're doing it wrong. You got to stand up on your own 2 feet. You got to look around yourself. Happiness is not your wife's problem. It's not because your wife that you're unhappy. It's not because your job you're unhappy. It's you. It starts and ends with you. If you're unhappy, that's your problem. You have to take ownership of that and make the changes to make yourself happy. Your wife will never make you happy. It's impossible. Your work will never make you happy. It's impossible. I'm telling you right now, if you can find something like art, or you can find maybe it's volleyball, it could be anything, or maybe it's a new career path. If you start feeling good about yourself inside, if you start loving yourself, if you find self-respect, your work is going to be amazing. You're going to walk in singing like the Viagra commercial. It's fun. Oh, what a wonderful feeling. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love you to death. I think you're both wonderful people, and I keep doing what you're doing. I hope some of our profiteers out there will hop over and check out your show and subscribe and start following you as well, because what you're doing is amazing. Profiteers out there, we got a lot of really cool things coming up that I'm super excited about. Pat already mentioned the Toronto Humane Society. We're going to go in and tell their story. That's coming up in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about how who knew they want you to keep your animal in your home? Who knew? That is their main drive. They don't want to take your animal away from you. They want to help you feed it. They want to help you with your needs. And we're going to explore that and find out what all that means. And I'm super excited because it gives us the opportunity to join Lisa Browning from 1,000 Trees, because she's the one that's kind of helping us. And also one of our old profiteers from the Benjamin Project, the one that's writes about his dog, Benjamin. It's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. And there's some secrets coming up. We're going to show. We got a couple of maybe new shows coming because I keep on driving Pat crazy at 5 a.m. And eventually he gave in and went, fine, we'll do it. Anyway, I love you all. And I really, truly mean this. If you're struggling out there, either find someone to talk to. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger, a loved one, or a friend, or me. Send me a DM. There's people out there that send me a DMs, and I will respond to you. I promise. I will respond to you. I'm concerned about you. I care about you, and I want you to be happy. And, if I can help, I'm willing to do it. Let's get out there and let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together. Patrick?
Well, as always, folks, another amazing Thursday Night Live. It's been a pleasure. Dana, you were a sweetheart. We look forward to maybe working with you again soon on some of these top secret projects, maybe. We'll see what we can do together. From me, folks, as always, let's make some money together, guys.
And here's your moment. We're going to get you a little bit here. What we want you to do is come on here right now, and you're going to talk to those people out there that you're trying to help. And you're going to give them that message that they need to hear right now. Maybe it's uplifting, whatever it is. Maybe it is don't eat at McDonald's. It doesn't matter. But talk to our profiteers out there and leave them with the final message.
Oh my goodness. the thing that always comes to my mind is it's not out of your hands. It's never out of your reach. Everything that you want, everything that you desire, feeling good, having somebody that you love that loves you in return, it's all within your reach. But it starts with you. It starts with loving yourself, understanding your worthiness, doing the work to just feel good and be strong, and everything else will fall into place. The world is your oyster. Now go get it.
She is 100% correct, and I love that. And Mark Reed, I'm so sorry we didn't have time for you today, bud.
Oh,
don't
Mark,
worry, you'll get out of that green room soon. You'll get out of there soon. We promise. It's going to happen.
I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you.